This is where we are in our calendar. Last Sunday of Lent, which is Palm Sunday. About to head into Easter, Holy Week, and all that good stuff. So we are kind of moving through our calendar here. This is an interesting passage. It's a really, really interesting passage that there's a lot of cultural things going on that we miss. So I like to remind ourselves of them every time we come back to Palm Sunday, because there is a major theme and message going on in Palm Sunday that we can kind of miss in all the parades and the palm waving and the shouts of Hosanna. It's easy to skip over what's actually going on amongst the people if you don't know the history, the culture, the holidays, and everything that's going on. So we're going to get a little bit nerdy in the history today, but we got to, in order to make this passage make sense, because there's some weird things going on in this passage. Like, hey, I want you to go into town and, steal that donkey. And if anyone asks, just use your Jedi mind tricks and we'll be good. Then it's like, oh, it worked. So we got lots of different weird things going on in this passage that don't make sense to us unless we dive into what's going on. But before, I want to introduce you to this guy. You know who he is? Probably not. His name is Dr. Spencer Silver. And now you're like, oh, that guy. No, not really. Still don't know who he is. We'll get there in a minute. He was born 1941, passed away in 2021. And he was a 3M scientist. Anybody who ever deals with 3M products, they make a lot of different kinds of products. He was a scientist, a research and development scientist for that company, trying to find new things. Now, he was attempting to make a super strong aerospace adhesive. Now, I know that's like, if it's going to be aerospace, that's got to be some really strong adhesive. I don't want the wing falling off because it was glued on with some nasty little adhesive that doesn't work. If it's going in the sky, if you're flying, you want this adhesive to be absolutely super solid, weld strong. So he was researching how to do that, and he failed. He did not come up with it. Actually, the opposite happened. He came up with a super weak adhesive, trying to make a super strong adhesive. Here's scientifically what it looks like. He made these microsphere adhesives that flattened when pressed, but returned to their shape when pulled on, making it really tacky surface with a weak adhesion. So he could stick it to something, and as soon as he pulled it off, it just came right off. And he's like, what kind of glue is this? What am I going to do with this weak glue? So it was a solution without a problem, and they put solution in quotation marks because it was an actual mixed up solution. So he had this solution with no problem, and along came this guy. He was a scientist as well, and he was in a choir in his church, and he kept putting all these bookmarks into his hymnal, and then he would open it up and bookmarks would fall out, and he's like, I know a guy, he's got this weak adhesive. I'll just throw some on there and I'll stick it to the adhesive thing. There's him. That's the guy. So for 5 years, they sought out an application for this solution without a problem. And then this guy in 1974, he applied it to these scrap paper pieces, and he applied it to his hymnal so he could keep them in place, and hence the Post-it notes were born. Who knew? Who knew that Post-it notes were the result of a failed experiment? It didn't work. They had these intentions. They had this is what I want to do. I want to make a glue so strong we can use it on planes flying through the sky at 500 miles an hour. And what do we get but rainbow Post-it notes out of the deal? So it's not exactly what they intended, but we figured some things out on the other side of it. It's okay, it's not what we thought we were inventing, but this will work. And I'm sure everyone in this room has used a Post-it note at some time in their life. And we can thank Mr. Art Fry. I like that picture. We can thank Mr. Art Fry and his idea, because sometimes the results don't match the intention. Have you ever done that? You had this purpose, you set out, you're going to do this thing, and then all of a sudden, well, that didn't work out. Sometimes that's a bad thing. Sometimes that's a good thing. We never know which one. But as one of my favorite saints of old said, we don't make mistakes, just happy little accidents. Saint Bob Fro here. I love that guy. You should go and watch. If you need to chill out, you will watch Bob Ross, and he will chill you out. Guaranteed, every time. It's like, if you can't afford therapy, you just go watch Bob Ross, and your life will get 100% better, I guarantee it. So, there's intentions we set out to do, and sometimes they don't really turn out the way we wanted them to. But it's like, okay, something entirely different came out of this thing. This is what explains this passage. The disciples, all of Jerusalem, the entire Hebrew people, they've got an intention. They've got something in mind that they want to have happen. It doesn't work out anything like they thought it was going to. And the result is Christianity was born. Like, a whole new movement came out of this thing that was a failed Messiah attempt that went into Jerusalem. And everyone said, all right, we want the Messiah to do three things. We want him to claim the throne and say, no, I'm the rightful king here around here. We want him to clear the temple of all of those money changers that are just profiteering off of us. And third thing we want him to do is we want him to rally us all together with God behind us, and then we will kill all the Romans. So that is what their desire was from their Messiah. And so this passage here is Jesus starts to meet those expectations. He enters Jerusalem on a colt, a small donkey, which was a claim to the throne. He does cleanse the temple, and everyone's like, all right, this is it. Here we go. Next one is up. We're going to kick out the Romans, kill them all. And Jesus doesn't do that and ends up dead on a cross. And 2,000 years later, there is the largest religion in the world is based on this one event. It is not what they intended. It is not what the whole Hebrew people thought was going to happen, but here we are. So we're going to dive into the intricacies of this story and talk about some Grand Theft Donkey that happened. Because this passage is interesting, isn't it? Like, I want you to go into this town, and you're going to see a donkey. He's going to be tied up here. I want you to take it. If anyone catches you, just say, the Lord needs it. And then off you go. It'll work out. It'll be okay. It's an odd passage. And here it is. Go into the village ahead of you. As you enter it, you will find tied there a colt that has never been ridden. Untie it and bring it here. If anyone asks you why you're untying it, just say the Lord needs it. And then magically, they're going to be like, oh, that's cool. Okay, that's cool. Yeah, sure, we'll take my donkey. Now, when I was a kid, I had this cool bike. It was a Huffy, and I loved this bike. I rode it all over town. I grew up in Detroit, so everything was a grid, so I never got lost. Like, even they had 1 by 1 grid, 1 mile by 1 mile. The neighborhoods inside the grid were even grids. And there really wasn't any curves or turns unless there was a river, and there was only one. And we always went down to that river and rode our bikes down the hill, down to the river. We'd explore, do stuff, then we'd ride back. We're just riding our bikes all over the place. And I was kind of proud of my bike. I wasn't a really cool kid. Surprising, shocking, I know. But my bike was, and it made me feel cool. I'm like, this is the only cool thing I got going for me right now. Because this bike is amazing. I had these pegs that were on the back wheel that my friend could stand on, put his hands on my shoulder, and we would ride around. And it was like, that was just extra cool, because no one in my neighborhood had that. And it was painted this cool maroon, and it had these really cool, like, handlebar grips on it that I really liked the handlebar. I didn't have, like, the flowy things like this. I was way too cool for that. They were just straight up latex rubber kind of a thing. They just made the bike awesome. So I drove my bike down the street to my friend's house, and I parked my bike. By that I mean I threw it on the grass. And I ran into the backyard, and we're just having fun. I don't remember what was happening. And then, I won't use his full name because Mike Brown wouldn't appreciate it. But Mike Brown came walking down the street with his thugs, and I was like, I don't like this guy. He's a punk. You know, we didn't get along. And he walked up to my bike, and he pulled off the handlebar grips. And I saw him do it. And he starts running, and I start sprinting after him. And I'm yelling after him, like, Mike Brown, you bring back my handlebar grips right now. And I'm running, and we run by my house. So Mike Brown, like, flies by my house. And then I'm chasing him, and my mom comes out on the porch. And she kind of lays down the law, and she yells at Mike Brown. and says, I know where you live. It's like, oh man. It's like, if you don't bring those back now, I'm going to go tell your mother. Like, so you know what happens next. Sheepishly, like this, like slumped over. He runs, he kind of walks by and he tosses them in my yard and then sprints off and runs away. And I was thinking to myself, I almost experienced theft. Like I was just some 9-year-old kid and I was like, wow, I know I live in Detroit, but come on. I was experiencing theft. I was like, what is going on? I don't know how to process this moment. And your adrenaline's pumping and you're just like, okay, I got to calm down. So I took my handlebar grips, put them back on my bike, and then I would always park my bike in his backyard and not throw it in there. It's like, oh man, that was a rough day for me, but I got him back. Everything was established. That's what kind of feeds my imagination when I'm reading this passage. It's like, hey, go into town, you're going to see this colt tied to something, and I want you to like untie the colt and bring it to me. If anyone catches you in the midst of your grand theft donkey, like then you got to like just spout out this phrase and just run and hope they don't catch you. Like that's how I read this passage with my imagination, but that's not how it goes at all. So let's look at, here's a little colt. Isn't he cute? That's so cute. He's a cute little colt. I think my feet would drag on the ground if I attempted anything. So this is upper middle class transportation. Now, we don't really understand this. We have cars and roads and all this kind of stuff. We have an infrastructure for transportation. Most people are just going to be walking in these days. Like on your Christmas card and you see Mary and she's on a donkey and Joseph is kind of walking. Never said that she was riding on a donkey. She's 9 months pregnant and she's walking. And she's like climbing mountains, 9 months pregnant. Because they were not upper middle class. They were very poor people. They had the poorest sacrifice of 2 pigeons for when Jesus was born. So it makes a cool picture on their card, but she probably had to walk the entire way. So upper middle class transportation. So if you were in New York City and you owned a car and you were not taking the subway like those people over there, like that's the kind of people we're talking about right here. Somebody who owns transportation when most people don't and they have to just kind of walk. So this is like if you're in New York and you're like, let's take the subway and then you see someone drive by in a Mercedes-Benz and you're like, oh man, like they've got it made, right? Like that's the kind of feeling you'd have if you saw somebody who was riding on a donkey. So is Jesus asking them to commit grand theft donkey? Like upper middle class people go and steal their transportation and bring it on back? Not quite. Something else is going on here that we don't quite see in our culture when we reflect on theirs. So the Hebrew people had an anticipation that one day King Messiah would ride into Jerusalem on a colt and claim the throne. Everyone had this expectation that the King Messiah was going to show up, claim the throne, and he would let us know that this is who he is by entering Jerusalem on a donkey. And that comes from a passage of Zechariah 9:9 that kind of set them up and fed that imagination into them. Rejoice greatly, daughter of Zion. Shout, daughter of Jerusalem. Your king comes to you, righteous and victorious, lowly and riding on a donkey, on a colt, the foal of a donkey. So this here was written hundreds of years before this moment, kind of preparing their minds. When you see a king that isn't coming in on a big glorious war horse, but more lowly, riding on not even a donkey, but just a little colt, then you know your king has come to you. And Jesus says, it's time, I am the Messiah, it's time for me to go and claim the throne of Jerusalem as my own. And so I need the colt. So everyone is anticipating this moment happening. There are people that loves to live out scripts. Have you ever attended like a Hebrew Seder, a whole Passover service? Like they even have a placemat for Elijah. Like they set out a chair, they leave it empty, and then they put a plate down and there's food, and they're like, that's Elijah's plate, because one day Elijah's coming back. Like they still do that to this day. They will set out a place. So they are ones that like to act out the scripts, and there's like, you have to ask these questions, and then we have these readings. They like have a whole dramatic presentation that captures their imagination. So this isn't just Jesus asking them, like, just slide in, grab the donkey and run, and if anyone catches you, I'll give you the secret phrase. And it'll magically like work on their minds. Something else is going on here. So, what if every year there is a colt tied to this post in hopes that this is the year the Messiah comes to claim it? So the response, the Lord needs it, is not an excuse to run off with a stolen donkey. but instead would fill the entire region with excitement and hope and a buzz that spreads fast. What if every year this cult, this is the year, we just tie a colt here, and one day the Messiah is going to come, and he's going to need the colt. And so when they come in, they're like, why are you taking my donkey? He's like, the Lord needs it. They're like, oh my gosh. It's happening? So you're telling me it's happening? This is it? The Messiah is here? He's coming to claim the throne? They're like, yep, it is. And that news would then spread through Jerusalem like wildfire. And you can see the crowds start gathering and they start shouting, and there's a big to-do about this moment. How did that word spread? But with the claiming of the colt to go into Jerusalem and claim that this is going to happen. This is the time. And so that's kind of the expectation there. And it sets off a wildfire expectation. Oh my gosh. And so all of these people start coming over and they start spreading their cloaks on the ground. And Jesus is riding on this colt, and people are then spreading the cloaks on the ground. It says this, why are you untying the colt? The Lord needs it. And then they brought it to Jesus, and after throwing their cloaks on the colt, they set Jesus on it. As he rode along, people kept spreading their cloaks on the road. We got to think to ourselves, why are they doing this? Why are they putting their cloaks down on the road? Is it muddy and they don't want the donkey's feet to get all muddy? Maybe Jesus is really tall and his feet are dragging. They don't want his feet to get muddy. What's going on? Why colts? Now there's something that happened all the way at the very beginning of the passage of Luke, the whole gospel. There's this guy here. You remember Quirinius? Of course you all do, right? Quirinius. It's a big part of Christmas. You won't recognize him until you see his name in Scripture. He turned the entire world upside down right at the start of this book. It says this, in those days, Caesar issued a decree that the census should be taken from the entire Roman world. This was the first census that took place when Quirinius was governor of Syria, and everyone went to their hometown to register. This is the reason that Mary goes to Bethlehem to register their name. They have to register for the census because Caesar is I need more taxes, I need more money, and so I need to know how many people there are, so the census has to be taken, and all of the world, I own everything, it's all mine, and I need more money. So he sends everyone out, and you can imagine that everyone was like, oh, this is wonderful. Road trips. No, that didn't happen. Everyone hated it. It was awful. It disrupted the entire world, and everyone had to disrupt where they were, travel back to where they came from, register for this census. The whole world was up in an uproar. And so there was a response. In Jesus' region, a guy named Judas of Galilee, he rose up, and he actually started this movement called the Zealots. Here he is here. And he said, if any one of you takes part in this census, I will burn your town to the ground. We are in violent warfare against this thing. And he's like, and if any one of you, my hometown people, register for this census, I will burn your house to the ground. And he said this, if you register for the census, I'll burn your house down and steal your cows. He was really mad. This was his response to this whole census being taken. This guy is actually referred to in Acts 5. And you can go read that if you want to. We'll skip that part. But here, Pontius Pilate is now the governor of this area. Jesus is going to come before him. He's the governor of the area. He's Roman, and he has to kind of look over all these people. It's Passover. Jerusalem has grown from about 30,000 people to about 750,000 people. And nobody likes the Romans. They all hate the Romans. And they're just now Rome knows this, and there's a lot of tension in the air. What are we going to do about this? There's a lot of people. We're going to have to increase our military presence. We're going to have to do a march. And every year he would have this whole parade. He would get on a war horse, and then he would have all of his soldiers behind him in full military gear, and they would do this march through Jerusalem every year on Passover. Kind of looking at him and being don't try it. It's not your year. Just shut up and do your thing and go home. This is not the year to try and rebel. And there was a few rebellions. Judas of Galilee led one of them, and they crucified him, and everyone ran away. So this happens. This is a fear that everyone has in this moment. Now Pontius Pilate, he has two jobs. That's it. That's all he's got. Two jobs. One is to keep the peace. Make sure that there's no riots. Make sure that nobody's going to rise up and try and make a hustle. And two, Send the taxes to Rome. That's your only job, Pontius Pilate. If he doesn't do those two jobs, he's in big trouble. And so if there is a rebellion in Jerusalem when 750,000 people are there, he's in trouble. He's in big trouble. And so there's all these tensions with the Passover. Everyone's ready to destroy Rome. And here comes this guy causing a ruckus. What is he going to do? Here comes Jesus. He's riding on a colt. Everyone is shouting. Everyone's waving palm branches. Y'all got palm branches today. They're crying Hosanna. They're laying their cloaks down. And why did they lay their cloaks down? Has this ever happened before in their history? Yes. They're doing something because they always love to play out those scripts. And it's like, this is what we do. This is what you do. Here's the questions and all. They do this. And so they're doing this right now. Why cloaks on the road? 2 Kings 9. There was this bad dude who was in charge of everything. His name was King Ahab. And nobody liked this guy. He was like probably the most evil king in their entire history. Nobody liked him. And Elijah went up to him and he's like, yeah, we're going to have to not have you king anymore. You're a horrible king. We don't like you. Nobody likes you. And so that actually happened. He snuck out and he secretly anoints this guy named Jehu as king. So Elijah has the political power to do this action because he's a prophet. And so he has political office because they have state and religion all as one. So he anoints this guy as Jehu. He's like, you're king now. That means Ahab's not. What are we going to do with Ahab, though? Okay, we're going to sneak you in. So they sneak him in. The people place all their cloaks under Jehu's steps as they cry, Jehu is the king. And the people then overthrow Ahab and they replace the evil king with a better one, Jehu. Has this ever happened before in their history? Yes, this here. So when they are placing their cloaks on the robe, they are reliving this moment here. They're like, this King Herod guy, he is awful. Rome just placed him there so that he can just be his little puppet king. We want somebody who's good. We want somebody who's going to look out for the people. We want somebody who's going to gather us together in a military rebellion against Rome, and we can kill them all, and then we'll be all independent again, and it'll be wonderful, just like in the olden days. That is in their imaginations in this moment. They're laying their cloaks on the road in an act of defiance, in an act of, we are now asking you to then overthrow everything that's horrible that's going on right now. That's that moment. That's why they're laying their cloaks on the road. They're saying Jesus is the rightful king, not that guy over there. So the cloaks are symbolic of the expectation, not only of Jesus' claim to the throne, but what he's going to do with that authority. But he doesn't fulfill their expectation. He dies like all the rest, and his followers scatter like all the rest, but somehow this one's sustained throughout all of history. Something happened that sustains everything throughout all of history. He's different than Judas of Galilee, who was crucified and his followers scattered. He's different than all the rest who claimed to do the same thing, got crucified and everything together. Something different happened here. And I think we can notice it in the cries of the people. As he was approaching the path from down the Mount of Olives, the whole multitude of the disciples began to praise God joyfully with a loud voice. They're singing Hosanna. And they're saying, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord, peace in heaven, glory in the highest heaven. Some of the Pharisees in the crowd said to him, Teacher, order your disciples to stop. And he answered you, if I tell you, if these were silent, the stones would cry out. Why are they so mad at the disciples? It's like, would Pharisees come into our church when we were singing Hosanna and be like, you gotta stop saying that. You can't say that. No, we don't say that around here. Like, it seems weird. Why did they want them to stop? Well, there's one reason, and it looks like this. Like, you guys are crying Hosanna, and treason is the reason for the season, kind of a thing. This is a highly politically charged moment. Rome is there with all of its garrisons. 750,000 people are in Jerusalem right now, and they hate these people. They want to overthrow them with violent rebellion, and they are ready to do something. And so they start crying. They're starting to raise a ruckus. There's something that's happening. And what is going to happen if the people start to say, this is the time that we are going to take up our swords and go against these guys here, the most highly trained, highly technological military on the entire planet. And you got a dagger or a shovel or like, what do you got? Like, what's going to happen? The Pharisees are afraid Because as soon as they get all worked up, these guys who have been brought in to keep the peace are going to kill them all. This is what they do. This is how they keep the peace. If you start raising a ruckus, we bring out the swords and you are dead. And we will fix that problem really fast. And anyone who claimed to be your leader that started this whole thing, you will end up on a cross crucified. That's what we do to all of you people who do that. Like, this is the Pharisees are nervous about. There's 4 responses to this moment. The Essenes, they're a group of people that retreat to the desert, and they're like, just let it all burn. Like, there's no hope. The religious people are messed up, the political people are messed up. Just let the thing burn to the ground and we'll go off to the desert and hide. That was their response. And then we have the Sadducees, and they're like, well, why not get rich? Like, we can just partner with the Roman government and we'll keep the temple going and we'll just get filthy rich off this deal. It'll work for us. Not really our main hope of what we happen, but at least we'll make money. And the Sadducees did that, and they were some of the richest people in the entire world because of that partnership. The Pharisees, who are the ones who are like telling Jesus, like, shut your followers up, they wanted to walk the line. Let's just see what God does. If we're good enough, maybe God will come in and rescue us. But let's not walk the line. Let's not leave. Let's not challenge. Let's just see what God does. And maybe, just maybe, if we're good enough, God will bless us. And then all of a sudden, everything will work out for what we want to do. Little wasps in here. And then the Zealots, they're like, grab your swords, kill them all. That was their response. These are the 4 responses that people had to this political moment. What are we going to do with Rome? What are we going to do with the people high up in our own people that partnered with Rome and are using it against us? What are we going to do here? What do we do? These are the 4 responses of the people. And Jesus says, I got a 5th option for you. We're going to try nonviolent resistance. That's what we're going to do. And he gives them the entire Sermon on the Mount is how, when you are under the oppression of people, how to nonviolently resist so you don't get killed, but you also retain your dignity. And that is exactly what Jesus starts here. Something else happens here. Each group placed in expectations upon the moment. What is God's role in this moment? What is our role in this moment? And what is the outcome that we're hoping for? They all missed what God was doing in their grappling for power. If we can just become the people who are on top, who are like the head dogs, who are in charge of everything, then we'll get it right. But this isn't what happens. So Jesus says that's just a reshuffling of the deck. We're not going to just reshuffle the deck of power and hand out all the cards again and then see who ends up on the top. Because that there would just be swapping out who's oppressing you. It's like if you are being oppressed and then you're like, I think I want to actually be the oppressor. You don't actually deal with the problem of violence. It's like, well, we just swap out oppressors, we'll be all good. They tried that under Judas Maccabeus. It was about 180 years before Jesus showed up on the scene. And it was they fought back against the people that occupied their land. And they won, and they were independent. And they were under more oppression from their own people in that moment. When Rome came to town, they're like, please, free us from this Maccabean dynasty. We need you. And now they're in it again. They're like, well, we just keep swapping out oppressors, and it's not dealing with the common core problem of violence. So what do you have faith in? This is the question of Palm Sunday. What do you have faith in? Power, dominance, and manipulation? Or love, inclusion, and invitation? See, Jesus shows up and he's like, I'm not going to kill the Romans. I'm actually going to open up the doors so that they can participate in the grand religion that you have been celebrating for thousands of years. And they're like, oh no, we don't do that. Like, we're not going to do that. Jesus shows up. He's like, this Roman centurion has more faith than anybody here in all of Jerusalem. And everyone gets mad. Oh no, we don't do that. We don't praise those people. We do not praise those people. We don't include those people. We don't talk to those people. We don't do anything like that. Jesus is saying this redemption plan that I am opening up the doors for all of creation is for every tribe and tongue and nation, to quote the Bible directly. And the Hebrew people of this day said, that's not how we understand things. No, it's ours. And when we get back in the seats of power, then everyone gets to come and serve us. And Jesus says that's the problem that I'm trying to fix. Not who's doing the oppressing, but the problem of oppression itself. And the only way to deal with that, as Martin Luther King says, hate cannot drive out hate, only love can do that. And so here we are on Palm Sunday. The palms today are going to be saved and burned for Ash Wednesday, which is the gateway to Lent. They're prayers of repentance, and it's a reminder every year on Ash Wednesday, from dust we came, and to dust we will return. But we are loved on that entire journey. And not only are you loved on that journey, but the people that you look and it's like, oh, but are they really them too? They're loved on the journey? Yes, they are loved on the journey. Every single human being on this planet is loved on their journey in some way, shape, or form. And this is the reminder that is not about swapping out oppressors and swapping out power structures, because how you get something determines who you are when you get that thing. And you can't use the world's means of violence and power and domination and hatred to get the seats of power and then say, well, now I'll do something good with it, because you have been shaped to use those other things instead. How you get something determines who you are when you have it. So Palm Sunday, we get to sing the praises of God, we get to shout the hosannas, but we also have to remember that these palm branches that we use and we wave on Palm Sunday will be burned on Ash Wednesday, as a reminder that we cannot use the world's dominance and power and hatred and all of that in order to accomplish God's ends. World's means do not accomplish God's ends. God's means accomplish God's ends. And it's the way of Christ that he showed us in the Sermon on the Mount. And if we are calling ourselves Christian, then we walk how Jesus walked. We act how Jesus acted. We have the values that Jesus had. And we don't just adopt Jesus as a mascot for our thing, but we actually try to live like Jesus did in this world. And we actually have faith. We have solid faith that the way of Jesus is actually the thing that will change things. Not the ways of the world of power that's been proven over and over and over and over again that it doesn't work. We have thousands and thousands of years of human history of saying war and domination and violence are going to fix it. We'll fix it with all this stuff. And it never does. It's still here. It's still happening. And the most popular religion in the entire world doesn't have a religious figure at the head of it. It's just a faith in violence will get things done. That's the most popular religion in all of human history. A faith in violence will get things done. And Jesus walks in and he gives himself over to the people and is crucified. And it totally bombarded everyone's expectations of that moment. And they walk away, oh, it didn't work. But there's this Easter moment, there's this resurrection moment on the other side of that. Because Jesus' love was so perfect that it conquers death. And that weapon that power uses on you, you better get in line or I'll kill you. Jesus is like, that doesn't work anymore because I've disarmed death. And so we have to have faith, not in violence and power and all those other things that will get stuff done, but faith in the way of Jesus. It's a long game, but it's the thing that actually will work. And so today we have a couple of reflections, questions. What do my strong emotions reveal about what I have faith in? That's a good question, because we all get the big emotions, don't we? Someone says the thing, and we watch the thing on the TV, and then all of a sudden we're like, oh my gosh, I just got this strong emotion. That is a signal. It's pointing to something. So what do my strong emotions reveal about what I have faith in? What kind of world do I wish for? And does it match God's vision for the world? And who is invited into that vision? So here's the spiritual practice we're going to do today. It involves our palms. Place your palm leaf into this basket up here as a visual reminder that love is the means of getting to the world that God desires, not dominance. And so after we do our Lord's Prayer, if you want to lay your palm down in that basket on your way out the door in kind of a moment, we will keep these palms that we have today, that we lay down today. We will keep them present, we will keep them visible, and then Ash Wednesday comes around and we will burn those palms that we have had in our sight for all year. And we will put the ashes on our forehead and reminders. This is not the way we do things. We do things through love. So that is today's message of Palm Sunday. Let me read our benediction. It is a benediction from Jan Richardson. She says, this blessing can be heard coming a long way off. This blessing is making its steady way up the road towards you. This blessing blooms in the throats of women, springs from the hearts of men, tumbles out of the mouths of children. This blessing is stitched into the seams of the cloaks that line the road, etched into the branches that trace the path, echoes in the breathing of the willing colt, the click of the donkey's hoof against the stones. Something is rising beneath this blessing. Something will try to drown it out. But this blessing cannot be turned back, cannot be made to still its voice, cannot cease to sing its praise of the one who comes along the way it makes.